To start, our first guest today has been involved with software in some way or another ever since he was 10. Um, Sorin, Sorin from Microsoft will tell us today something about how we can use analytics and reports to get the best values for our businesses. Enjoy and thank you.
Okay, thank you. Am I mic'd up? Is it okay? Okay. Morning, everyone. Good to have you here. Welcome. My name is Sorin Peste. I'm a cloud or data architect at Microsoft, working here in Bucharest, Romania, with a bunch of customers from Romania and the region. Some of you are my customers. Some of you are my future customers. So today's session is about using Microsoft Power BI to move past the classical, what happened, just looking at some reports, and taking the next steps into what's going to happen next, right? So the reason for this particular session is that, in my experience at least, working with customers from Romania and from the region, is that there are a lot of customers who come to us and say, or to me and say, okay, Sorin, we have to, make our reporting better. Let's help us. Let's go ahead and help us. Build all the data pipelines, build all the data warehouse, build the data lake, data lakehouse, data marts, whatever, and prepare all this data for business. But at least in my experience, there is comparatively little thought or effort put into how the business consumes that all that data that you have to basically extract insights from it. Some customers will just say, okay, the business basically, so the kind of general sentiment is, okay, the business people know what they want to ask, and they will ask those questions of the data. Either they are skilled enough to do that themselves by using something like SQL. If your company is skilled in that and your business people are actually skilled to use those tools, then that's great. But if not, what happens more often than not is that they will just ask, okay, I need a report that does this. And they will go to the data team prepares the queries and all that stuff, and then they serve the data to the user, which then downloads it in Excel. Okay, if this is not you, then great. Congratulations. If you're actually a step beyond that, then that's great. But I think it's kind of a missed opportunity here to actually help and bridge this gap, because the business people bring the business knowledge, and we can actually get the data to them in a format that they can actually make more use of it without actually having to overload the data engineering team into producing each and every report. Then there's the problem of how much value you get from the data, how much insights you get from the data. This is a chart that's been around for a while. I think I saw it first in the Gartner report. Don't know where it originated first, but I think it's a useful formalization of the type of questions or the type of insights that the business is asking from their data. Pretty much every question will fall somewhere along this continuum. So the basic one is, what happened? Pointer is not working, but basically, this is your standard reporting, right? What has happened? This is your, every company that I work with is at least competent at this. They will either do some fancy dashboards and so on, interactive dashboards, or they may just use a bunch of Excels. But you may have some sort of way of looking into the past. So it's all a window into the past, looking at the data to figure out what happened. That's step number one. And most people will do this to some degree of competence, right? Then there's the question of, okay, diagnostics. Okay, why are we seeing this in the data? Maybe there's some metric, there's some KPI, there's something. So the timer is not working. I'm not sure if there was supposed to be like a timer for the rest of my talk. Thanks. So it's, why is this particular metric trending down? Or why is this particular, KPI is not going in the right direction? So trying to find out the reasoning behind a specific trend that we see in the data. Then there's the predictive aspect of it. Okay, so what will happen next based on where we've been? Most companies will do some form of forecasting with their data, although the amount of tooling of the the capability of the tools to do these kinds of things is pretty limited. Most of the forecasting that I've seen is done using educated guessing. Maybe that's a nice way of putting it, but there's a lot of, I know better than any tool, and that may actually be true, but that doesn't mean that you can't really use the tool to help you out. And then the other aspect of this besides forecasting is the kind of general machine learning type of approaches where you train models to help you along. And then there's prescriptive. So what should I do? Okay, based on everything that I've done, is there like a suggested course of action that we should take? Now I want to emphasize that none of these, and especially the last two, are the you shouldn't rely just on tools alone to do this. No BI tool, no matter how smart, will be able to tell you what you should be doing with your business. All the data and all the insights that you can get from these tools needs to be interpreted with the business knowledge to arrive at the correct course of action. But there should be more involvement in the tools in the process. And from my experience, it's not. Again, if this is not you, then that's great. So this brings me to Power BI. Power BI is an analytics suite, a BI tool and a dashboarding set of tools that we launched some 8 or 9 years ago. It still gets monthly updates, one of our most frequently updated products. It's got, for those of you who are not familiar with the ecosystem, basically there are 4 main parts to it. There is a Power BI desktop tool, which is your main analytics tool. This is where you build your reports, dashboards, and you also analyze the data to get those kinds of answers, like why something is happening, or what should I be doing, and so on. So that's Power BI Desktop, which is a free tool. You can download and use at any time on your data. Once you have maybe a report or a dashboard or some sort of insights ready, you can publish it to the cloud service, the Power BI service, to share with your business audience, and they can share it further along. You can have access rights, you can have all sorts of things, notifications when there's data, there's new data, and so on. So that's the portal, the Power BI service portal. There's a mobile app and also a way to optimize your reports for mobile, for people who are consuming them using the mobile devices. And then there is something called Power BI Embedded, which is basically something geared towards application developers who want to embed interactive dashboards, reports into your own custom application to serve to external users. Yeah, that's all the slides. All the rest of the talk is going to be demos. If you want to play along with the data and the report that I'm going to build and the analytics that I'm going to do, you can do it yourself. Like I said, Power BI Desktop is the free tool, aka.ms/Power BI-desktop. Power BI-workshop. You can get both the sample data, which is public data of Kaggle, and also the kind of finished Power BI file that we're gonna build in the rest of the talk. Okay, so enough slides. Like I said, let's go to the demo. And we're going to try to make that progression from what happened to why to what should we do, what will happen next and what should we do. So I do have a public data set, like I mentioned. This is I think it's fairly known. It's off Kaggle. I downloaded it off Kaggle. It's a bank customer data set with can you see the font all the way from the back? I did a few testing this morning, but okay. So basically we have some customers. There's 10,000 customers in this data set. We have customer ID, last name, credit score, some geography, which is basically, I can also do this, which helps. I can also do this, which doesn't. So we have the geography, we have some information about gender, age, tenure. We have a balance. We have, what else? We have a number of products that they use, bank products. So this is a fictional bank, obviously. Whether or not they have a credit card, whether or not they're active members to some programs, an estimated salary. Not sure if this is something that banks will estimate themselves. Maybe they will. Or maybe they just ask us in all those forms. I don't remember. And there's also a column called exited. So this is kind of a data set that is used in kind of churn demos. So the basic churn problem is trying to figure out which of your customers leave you for the competition. So exited one means basically that this customer is a former customer. They used to be our customer in the past, but now they have moved on to the competition for one reason or another. So we have people who are still our customers, the zeros, and people who have moved on, right? So this is basically the object of our short analysis. We have, what, half an hour? Okay. So that's the CSV. Obviously, we're going to try to load this up into Power BI. So this is Power BI Desktop if you've never seen it. Again, hopefully you can see the font. If something's not visible, let me know. I can go on and grab this data. just do a quick list here, so you can see we have a bunch of files that you can files that you can connect to. We have databases, SQL Server, Oracle, IBM, Sybase, Snowflake, Redshift in Amazon, and pretty much everything all in between. We have online services, so Dynamics. We have Google Analytics, Salesforce. All of that stuff is baked in as connectors. We can also connect to like Spark clusters, Hive, ODBC, OLEDB, so this kind of generic type of connectors. All of it is supported. You can even write an R or Python script if your data source is a bit weirder and you need to do some custom stuff before you can grab the data. So anything you have, you really can connect with Power BI. So I'm going to get the text CSV file. Going to grab the file that we saw earlier. Okay, so this is the kind of a preview. We have all these columns. I'm just going to do load. Obviously, you can do a lot of transformation, data cleaning, and so on, but I'm not going to do that today. And we just load this data into the model. So we have 10,000 rows. We can actually see it very quickly. We have this data pane here. Yeah, so there's 10,000 rows here. Yeah. Okay, so let's do the step one very quickly. We can build a quick report to see what happened, what has happened with this with our customers. So let's see how many do we have. We have this customer ID, which I'm assuming it's unique. I probably shouldn't do assumptions, but I'm going to do it for this talk because I don't really have time to do anything more. I'm going to transform this into a card. There's 10,000 customers. Let's format this a little bit. The display units is probably better to be put to none. Okay, so about 10,000 customers, fine. Let's try and split them up by some specific attributes. Let's look at tenure, for instance. So we have this tenure. I'm going to put this into x-axis. So you know the choice of visuals is a good talk. It's a good subject for a talk. What kind of visual you should be using for what kind of message that you're trying to tell, or what kind of information insight you're trying to get. But I'm just going to use a not credit score. I'm just going to count to the customers. Okay, let's use a stack bar chart. I'm gonna focus on this one, so just we can all see it. And I'm interested, like I said, we're trying to analyze our exited customers. I'm going to put this as the legend. Let's also see the actual values, data labels, and I probably want to make the y-axis categorical instead of continuous. There we go. So also I'm going to sort the axis by tenure. Okay, so this is basically a kind of a very simple visual. I can see that it doesn't really seem to be a pattern. So tenure is basically the number of years that they have been our customer before either exiting or not exiting. So we have customers with 10-year tenure, so they've been along for a long time, and actually about 20% of them actually are, in this example data set, they are still exiting, so they are still going to the competition, right? Whereas maybe some of the shorter tenure customers actually have a slightly larger percentage of churning or chance of churning. Okay, let's also do geography. I mean, it's geography. I'm going to use a map. I don't have the skill to do anything else. I'm going to use geography as the location, and I'm going to use the bubble size as the number of customers. I'm just going to count them. Okay, and let's make the bubbles bigger because nothing can be actually seen. Okay, let's make it like this. I'm not sure if this is a better, let's do it like this, maybe this is better. Okay, we put in the category label. So we have 3 countries, Spain, France, and Germany in our data set. And also, again, we want to legend by the exited field. So you can see, so if I just focus on this one, let's close the filters. So in a kind of a glance, we can see that there seems to be a kind of a larger percentage of churned customers, exited customers in Germany versus the other countries. I'm not sure if this kind of color theme displays very well on this monitor, but maybe this is a bit better. This green and blue, I don't know. Okay, let's also look at some other type of split. Let's do a Control-C, Control-V here, And let's look at the churn percentage by, let's say by credit score, for instance. Okay. And this is, okay, this doesn't look very good. We have just a bunch of random credit score values. So this is this kind of a score that the bank assigns to you based on your credit worthiness. If they deny your credit or quote you a very large interest, it's because your credit score is likely low. Okay, so that's one thing. So we have all these kind of values that are random values. It doesn't really help us for each individual value. So probably what we want to do is to bin those values to make some buckets. So we can do this very quickly. We can go to credit score here and go to new group. I'm gonna say I'm gonna have a number of bins, and I'm gonna say I want 10 bins. So the minimum value of credit score in this data set is 350, which basically means you're probably not gonna pay any loan back, and 850 is the highest credit score. So I have these bins now, and I can use that as the axis, and I think this is already a bit better. So we have, actually we probably should be sorting by credit score. So it's like 350 to 400. We have 19 customers, and all of them have exited. Then we have all this kind of progression, but we see generally we seem to have some larger percentage of exited based on the credit score, especially on the lower tier, maybe. Okay, don't really have time to do any more stuff, but basically it's already it's already a kind of a start of a report, and it's interactive. Okay, Power BI does this very well. So if you click on something, so for example, let's look at those Germans who have exited. I can click on this directly, and then everything just highlights automatically. There's ways to control the interactions between these visuals to make them behave differently based on what the user clicks on. So I can see these are the customers in France that have not exited, and I can actually see what the proportion of that is in my data set and so on. This is kind of implicit way of filtering that the user can do. You also have explicit, so we have this filter pane here, so we can add filters here at different levels on the page, on the visual, on the entire report. What I prefer to do is to use slicers instead. So you can, let's say, for instance, we want to filter on the balance. Whoops. And I'm going to transform this into a slicer. There is a slicer visual here. Somebody help me out. Can't see it. Left. Where is it? Ah, there we go. Okay, thanks. So see, you just change the font and the size aspect ratio, and I can't find anything anymore. So then we have this balance. So if I only want to see, the people with a balance of at least 10,000, whatever currency this is, then I can just filter that, and all the report filters and so on, and I can keep filtering by clicking and so on. So I prefer the slicer approach to the filters approach because it's a lot more obvious to a business user who is not actually familiar with a tool like Power BI. If I publish this, so if I'm building this report with the aim of publishing it to the portal, so the head of customer satisfaction sees this, then they may not figure out that there is a filter pane here to filter stuff. That's why. Okay, so I mean, I can do a bunch of other stuff, but Power BI can actually do really well this kind of what happened part. There is a lot of built-in visuals. There are a lot of third-party visuals in the marketplace. You can build your own visuals. With JavaScript, you can build your visuals. With Python, R, pretty much everything that you want to do, you can do in your report to make them tell the story that you want. Okay, so that's the what, right? This is all pretty standard for, I think, for BI tools nowadays. So I'm just going to call this page like overview. Come on. And move on to the why, right? So we have maybe 10 minutes to analyze the why. So I'm going to look at, okay, why is my customer churn so high? Seems to hover around 20% based on the all the data. So there's two things I could do here. I mean, there's many things I could do here. I'm going to show two because that's all I have time for. So there is something called key influencers. There is a visual called key influencers. Who has used this at any point? A couple of people. Okay, 2, 3, 5 people. Okay. So there is a key influencers visual that allows you to analyze a specific metric that you're interested. So I'm going to drag this exited in the analyze field. And it's actually, maybe not see here, what influences exited to increase. So increase is basically saying we have 0 and 1 values for our exited. Maybe it's just better and more logical for a business user to transform this exited from whole number to a logical, a Boolean value. I'm going to do that real quick, because I want to tell it it's actually only false or true, so there are no possible other values for that exited field. So okay, so I'm interested in the people who are exiting. So exited, that's what I'm trying to figure out. What influences exited to be true, right? Why are people leaving? And I can start dragging in the explain by field. I can start dragging in all the fields that I'm interested in. So I can drag in. I'm going to stay away from things that can identify a person, like age and gender. That's not really a good idea. It's unethical at the minimum. It can actually also produce some unfair results to specific segments of your customer base. So don't do that. But I'm gonna drag some of the others. So credit score. Let's look at geography. What else? Has credit card is fine. Oops. Okay, number of products. Okay, and tenure as well. There's a few fields here, and I don't want actually to summarize these numeric values. I just want to analyze them as they are. By default, it applies a default kind of aggregation to these fields. I'm just going to say, you know what, just leave them as they are. So you get this kind of analysis. I'm just going to minimize everything else. I'm going to have to zoom in, unfortunately. But basically what this is saying is that for when a specific attribute is true or is a specific falls in a specific interval, then the percentage of the churn customers increases versus the baseline. So like the credit score 404 or less, then the percentage of churn customers is almost five times the total population, the total customer base average. Or when you have 3 or more products being used, the likelihood of exited increases again by 5 times. So essentially, what this is telling me is that the more products the customer uses, the more likely it is that they leave, which is a bit weird. And I would like to say that a lot of times people use Power BI to uncover, incredible insights. But the truth is that an equal number of times they will use these BI tools to uncover problems with their data. So if I see something like this, my first reaction is you're probably transforming this data wrong somewhere in your pipeline, right? This is happening far more often than people admit, but turning your data into pictures like this is a very useful way of uncovering these mistakes, these errors, right? So how is this number of products being calculated somewhere in the backend in the pipelines before it reaches you? Your data lake or data warehouse or whatever, right? So that's where I would go with this. Again, I didn't make up this data set, it's a public one, but Power BI is actually very useful at finding these kinds of problems with your data. And there are problems with your data, I can pretty much guarantee it, right? And then you have these kinds of charts where you see, okay, so this is the average, excluding the more than 3 products base. Is something like, you can't see the writing, but it's basically 19.8%. But with the more than 3 products, basically everyone in this data set is churned, which is a bit strange, like I said, right? It's actually 60 people that they have churned with using, I guess, more than 3 products in this case, right? So you get this kind of, this is something that we already seen. Oops, sorry. This is also something that we've seen, is that we have this kind of, for Germany, we have a much larger percentage. This is something that we were able to find out on our own. But when you have a large customer base with 200 attributes that you collect from different data sets, it may be difficult to figure that out just by dragging some charts, right? So this can actually give you this kind of information. So there's a bunch of other stuff that you can see here. There's also a top segments one. So we'll do some segmentation based on the metric of interest. So for instance, we have a segment here that is people from Germany which are using either less than or equal to 1 or greater than 2. And in this particular segment, almost half of them are churning, much higher than the average. And it's about 1,400 people, right? And you can actually click to see more about this segment, so you can actually get some more insights about this particular segment of your customers, which you can say, so for instance, in this particular sub-segment, the people who have 850 credit score, so the higher, the high credit rating people will have actually affects the distribution more. And you can see the kind of the overall distribution, and then what this happens. This is the actual distribution for the people who have 850 or more credit score, right? So we can give you some insights. Like I said, all of these insights needs to be interpreted with the business knowledge. Don't rely on just a tool, but the tool is there to help you, and you can actually use it to get this kind of information. Let's do one more. Let's do a decomposition tree. So we can. There's another way. For example, we can actually tackle the why question. So for instance, I want to analyze this particular percentage of customers who are churned. I don't currently have a metric or a measure for this. I'm going to create one. So a measure is basically just a calculation that you can do. We have this kind of new measure or quick measure, a calculation. I'm going to create a quick measure. So there's 3 ways to create these kinds of measures, these kind of calculations. It can be like writing a formula on a language called DAX. This is the language of Power BI. Kind of looks like Excel a little bit by design. You have like a wizard, so you can have a wizard to help you create metrics like average per category, variance, weighted average, year to date, quarter to date, rolling average, those kinds of analytics that you're probably quite familiar with. You can also create a metric. Ooh, I'm not signed in. Okay. You can also create this metric. Come on. No? Okay, but I do have one that's already working, so that's why it's good to have a backup in your demos. Yeah, so let's do it here. I actually already have this metric, but I'm going to create one nonetheless. Quick measure. Let's see if I'm signed. No, I'm not signed in here either. Not even the backup is working. Ooh, okay. That's interesting. Okay, I can just show you the end result. So essentially, I have a metric that is the percent of people exited, right? You can type in this formula, or you can also ask a suggestion. You can just say percentage of customers who are exited or churned, and they will just create this formula for you. You'll have to take my word for it. But currently, it just doesn't really work. So I have this particular, I have this particular metric, which is percent exited. And if I just drag it here and say, okay, this is the, I'm going to use a card. So about 20% of my overall data set is churned. I know that already. But if I use something like called the decomposition tree to try and kind of drill down into this a bit, I'm going to say I want to analyze this percent exited field, and which is, sorry about the font, but it's about 20% again. But then I can start to explain this by various aspects. So if I explain by geography, if I expand this, I can see, okay, so overall it's 20%, but Germany has 32%, and the others are below the average. Okay, so what about this Germany kind of? Okay, can I look, for instance, on the, say, on the, let's say, tenure, for instance, right? Or for the people who have a credit card, right? I can add the has credit card field, and I can say, okay, just split it by this, and I can see that for the credit card is actually statistically negligible. So maybe the credit card doesn't really play a factor, at least for Germany, maybe for others. I can use, for instance, tenure, right? So I can expand by tenure. And I can see, okay, so for specific tenures, like 9 years of tenure, so 9-year old customer that's been with us for 9 years, almost a third, more than a third, are actually churning. So what's up with these guys, right? And then I can start drilling down even more. So let's see what the credit score of those people with a 9-year tenure is. And I can add it here. And I can expand it, and I can see the bins. So even for people with 800 is great, by the way, right? So if you qualify for, like, if you have like an 800 credit score, then that's awesome. You probably get a good rate on your next purchase. So almost half of them are actually churning, right? So this is a way of decomposing your data to get at those things that can actually answer the why question. Again, needs to be interpreted. It's not something that you can just use as is and take its word for it. Just as many times as you uncover some great insight, you will discover some problem with your data, I guarantee it. But these are maybe just like maybe 20% of the tools that Power BI has built in to answer the why question, to help you answer the why question, to be honest. Don't have time to dig into the why question even more because I have, what, 10 minutes left? 10 minutes left to try and answer the what next, right? So we have a kind of historical data set. Is there a way to build a machine learning model to predict which customers are likely to churn in the next period? So because if we can have a prediction on that, then maybe we can go on and target them and maybe offer them some sort of incentive to stay with us. As you probably know, if you try to get a customer back after they left, that's quite difficult. A lot of times it's impossible, or even if it is possible, it will be a lot more expensive than trying to keep them on board before they actually turn away, right? Okay, so let's try and do that. In order to do that, we can't really do that with Power BI Desktop. This is a Power BI service feature, so it's a cloud feature because it has to churn some machine learning stuff, right? Not really feasible locally. So this is the Power BI. This is the Power BI. The Power BI web version, right? The cloud version. By the way, I don't really have time to show the publish feature, so you can actually just publish and share these reports with your customers. But essentially, once you publish something, it will look something like this, right? So this is the kind of cloud version. It's a little bit different because I built it yesterday. But all of these visuals and pages are available. The analysis is actually running as we speak, and we have all this analysis. So this is what the experience that the kind of a business user will get. They don't need Power BI Desktop. They just need a Power BI Pro license to analyze this data. Okay, so let's try and build a customer churn model in the 6 minutes that I have left. Okay, I don't like to take time from the next speaker, especially as I think there's no break between the sessions. But okay, let's try and build a predictive model here with Power BI. So we can go here in my this is what's called a workspace. This is kind of like a folder in Power BI. You can organize and stuff. You can give access rights to users, to groups, and so on. So I'm just going to go in and create something called the data flow. So I'm going to prep, clean, and transform data. Not so much prepping and cleaning today. I'm going to do some transformation. In this case, I'm going to build a machine learning model. And I'm going to add a new table. This is very similar to connecting to sources using Power BI Desktop except now I'm just using the cloud. I have the kind of same options, so databases, files, big data clusters, Spark, all of that stuff is available. I'm just going to upload this file just to keep things simple. We go next. If you go to upload, you'll actually upload it to your OneDrive, but you can even reference it from other types of storage if you need to. Yeah, so this is my data set. We've already seen it. It's kind of the same thing. There is this step where it actually takes me to the transformation step, so I can actually add more transformation here, like filter and all of that stuff. I don't want to do that. I'm just going to do save and close. And I'm going to see Big Data Week. Oops. Big Data Week demo. This is my data flow. So it's going to save my data flow. You can also notice that you now can set a refresh schedule. So if there is some sort of process where you actually want to refresh this data periodically to redisplay, to retrain your models, then you can set something like that. Don't want to do that right now. I have this bank customer, it's called 5 because I have uploaded a bunch of files in the past. So this is my data. Can even see it again. I think I've already seen it actually. Yeah, so these are all the fields that we've seen. And I'm going to go here and say add a machine learning model to this. And this is the table that I want. And it's asking me for the outcome column. This is going to be a bit tricky. Maybe I need to lower the font a little bit. But basically, I'm looking for that exited field. That's what I'm trying to do here, right? And I'm going to say I want to build a model to predict that outcome, the exited field. And most of the time, I'm not interested in either value. I'm most interested in the exited one. So that's the model. That's what I want the model to optimize for, essentially. Who here is a data scientist? 1, 2, 3. Okay. So the data science stuff is in there, so we can discuss it, but not during the session because we won't never finish, right? So this is more a feature aimed at business analysts, but data scientists are also using it as a kind of an on-ramp. So maybe kind of a shortcut to start with a good baseline because it will recommend a model that is likely to work well with your data set and your stated problem, right? So it's not replacing data scientists anytime soon, but it is actually a useful tool to have in your toolbox. Okay, so the match label, I'm gonna give a label here. So the ones are gonna be exited, and so the mismatch is gonna be not exited. So the zeros, and I go next. So he's looking at my data set now. He's going to recommend some of the columns that I want to use. I'm not going to get into data science part of this. I want to build the simplest model that actually works and is robust and is generalizes well and so on. But essentially, some columns, they say, okay, they may not be a good predictor, maybe or maybe not. I can add them. So if I want to also build a model based on geography, I can do it. Again, I'm going to stay away from age and things like that. I'm not going to use those. Probably don't want to use customer ID or last name. That doesn't really make any sense, right? I'm just going to use a couple of fields in my model. Was there anything more I could use? I have tenure. Okay, so no gender, no age. Okay, I'm just going to use those. And you give it a name. Okay, so customer churn. And then you have some sort of training time. So based on what kind of data you have a lot of data, and the problem is complex. You may actually go even multiple hours or even more. It's actually possible to go beyond this. But if you don't do anything, it will essentially continue to train until it actually reaches some sort of plateau. So the model doesn't improve anymore, and it will actually just stop. So now it kicks off a training. So once again, for the data scientist people here, this is using a service called automated machine learning that we have in our cloud. It has this kind of concept where you're feeding in the data, the target metric, and the constraints, time and cost, and then it goes in an iterative fashion, trying different types of algorithms, machine learning algorithms and parameters for them to produce an algorithm that is likely to work well with your problem. So the data science stuff is still visible. You can see it. You can analyze it if you need to. But for a business analyst, this is probably a bit much. Data scientists can use this, like I said, as a kind of on-ramp to start with a good baseline of a kind of algorithm, type of algorithm, hyperparameters and so on that is likely to work well with that problem. If there is one, there might not be one, depending on what you're trying to do. So we're not going to wait for this to finish, obviously. It will take sometimes like 10 minutes, even on this small data set, to do. So we're going to look on the on one that is already trained. Let's go and look at it. It should be this one. I'm going to show you the training report, 2-3 minutes. Okay. So I've already trained this model. We can see a report on this model training. Okay, so like I said, there is some data science stuff here, like area under the curve and so on the test set. I'm not going to talk into the data science methodology of how splitting your data, training and testing, and training on some data, testing on the other, and so on. It's all there. Let me also set, okay, I have a probability threshold. There's also what's called the confusion matrix. The main idea here is that you can see the kind of what the model has identified as the top predictors and their influence in the final outcome of each individual prediction. So you can see that there are some things that it was able to pick up, like the fact that geography is Germany is a good predictor as its own, or the balance may actually have some impact in that, right? So it will actually give you the top predictors by influence on this model. And there is also something that is, so again, there's a lot more tabs here for the data scientists, like ROC curve, cumulative gains, and so on, and all the training details, the model quality, and so on. I'm not going to get into that. Don't have time, sorry. If you want to ask some questions afterwards, I'm ready to do it. I also want to take a minute to look at this thing, which is the cost-benefit analysis, which is maybe more useful for a business user. So essentially, what this is trying to help you is to figure out which customers should you target. So kind of help towards the what should I do question, the last question. Because everything that you're trying to do as a result of such a model will have a cost to your business, right? If maybe I'm saying, okay, that this particular person is likely to churn, let's go and offer them something, right? That has a cost for me. Maybe I offer them some great rate on a new credit. Maybe I offer them some sort of bonus for sticking with me, right? Some sort of incentive for them to stay, which has a cost for me as the bank, right? So if I try to target, I have a population size of 10,000. Let's say the unit cost is, let's say, $100 or something to target each individual that I choose to target based on this model. And maybe I can estimate some sort of benefit if I manage to keep that customer. For the customers I do manage to keep, I won't manage to keep everyone, right? The customers I do manage to keep, I'm expecting some sort of like 500 units or dollars or whatever for the next period, right? So this will tell me, given on this particular data set, which are the customers that I should target based on the predictions of the model. So this particular graph is saying that the maximum profit is the minimum probability threshold required for maximum profit is 0.52. So essentially what it's saying, the model is making a probability estimation. So it's saying this is 69% chance of churning. Everything that's above 52%, you should go and target. Everything that's below, you should not, because it's probably just wasted money, right? So that's kind of what it's trying to do. Don't really have time to discuss all the kind of implications of this. Don't try to use this as it is. Apply your business knowledge about the customers, look at the actual customers, and make a decision. How do you look at the actual customers? There is a button here to apply this model, right? So you can apply it on your existing customers. I'm gonna show that real quick, and then we're done. Essentially, I may have another data set here, which is my current customers. So I have a data set with my current customers. They have the same attributes, right? So we have surname and so on. I don't have the exited column, right? This is what I'm trying to figure out. They are my current customers. I don't know whether they're going to leave or not, right? That's what I'm asking the model to do for me. So I have the same thing and actually can apply that model. I'm going to show you the result of applying that model. I don't really have time to do the apply button and select all those choices. But basically, once you do that, you have this kind of data sets that enriched the existing data set with the predictions. So I can just open this one and I'll show you what the model shows you. So if you apply that model using that apply model button or maybe some sort of automation, you will get something like this. So for all the existing customers, the current customers, it will add a couple more columns to the data set. And it will say, okay, it is a little slow. I guess I haven't applied this in a while. Any questions while this is churning? It's all clear? Wow, that's the first. I'll give it one more minute. So essentially, we should output a yes or no, likely or unlikely to churn based on the threshold that I selected, like 50%, 52%. We'll say yes or no, and then it will also give me a probability. So it's saying this particular customer is 73.3% likely to churn based on this model, or 12.1%, right? Oh, there we go. Okay, so we have these columns. We have a outcome, so it's false or true. Then there is the percentage. So for this one, it's 34% likely to churn. It actually classified it as a false because it's below the 52% that I chose as the threshold. This one, 51, actually I chose 50% for this one, sorry. So 51 is true, 54 is true, and so on. So it just gives you both a probability based on what the model was able to discover. And then we have these explanations where you can have like a base probability is basically 50%. And then we have this kind of, each particular value shows some sort of increase or decrease in the likelihood that that particular customer will churn. So for this particular one, the fact that the geography is France, it actually has a 0.37 increase on this particular instance, like this particular data point. Yeah, so obviously don't use this as it is, but it will actually help you to segment your customer that you want to target to try and keep on board before they leave. Okay, I'm out of time. Maybe one or two questions, I don't know, while the next speaker sets up. Any questions? Yeah.
Is this available as premium per user or part of the pro license?
Right, so I didn't talk about the licensing, but basically Power BI Desktop, so the stuff that I did in desktop is free to use. Power BI Desktop is a free tool. The cloud version that does the machine learning stuff is only available as premium. So we have Pro and Premium, two licenses, right? You can get a per user license, or you can get like kind of a per core license if you want. You get some processing power, like a cluster in the cloud, and then you pay for that. And then you don't need, no longer need Pro licenses for the users, right? But it's a premium feature. Thanks. What do you think, Stales? One more question, maybe? Well, if not, then thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day and the rest of the conference.